All right, great. So if someone could just give me a thumbs up that you're seeing my PowerPoint slide. Great. All right, well, hello, my name is Lori Birrell, and as Amy said, I'm Associate Dean for Special Collections at the University of Arkansas. Our topic today is Love in the Archive. I'm excited to share with you highlights from our collections. There'll also be an opportunity for you to practice your own hand at writing a message, a care message to someone who's special in your life if you'd like to do that. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about the kind of work that we do in special collections. And so together with a colleague of mine, we created two short videos. So I'm actually going to switch screens and share that with you.
Hello, my name is Lori Birrell, and I'm Associate Dean for Special Collections at the University of Arkansas. Special Collections collects, preserves, and makes available for research materials important to our state, the university, and the wider world. Photographs, letters, and rare books are just a few examples of the kinds of materials we collect. We collect with the overarching mission in mind to support the research and teaching endeavors of the University of Arkansas, and we work daily to ensure that intellectually valuable and unique items continue to be made available for research and used by faculty, students, the broader academic community in our state and across the globe. We hold the papers of prominent leaders, but the papers of Arkansas families are another important area of focus for our archive. Through these materials, researchers are better able to understand how those who lived in our state thought about their lives and their experiences. Arkansas state history is of great importance to our collecting focus. These collections date from when Arkansas was still a territory, and we aim to collect the complete print history of our state in Arkansas. And of course, we're home to University Archives, which documents all things U of A. Our focus on rare books rounds out the kinds of items we collect. We hold fine examples of printing and illustration, as well as complete libraries of significant writers, all of which support our faculty's teaching and research efforts. Now, none of these collections are meant to sit in a box on a shelf. They are meant to be used to create scholarly work, including class assignments and dissertations, books and blog posts, works of art, and everything in between. Researchers and creators draw inspiration from what they discover in our archive. So I hope you can see, Special Collections truly is, well, special. And as the University of Arkansas and our state continue to grow, so must our holdings. The primary way we grow our collections are through new donations from people just like you. We're always interested in learning more about materials that may be a good fit with our mission.
All right, and now I will show you the second video that talks a little bit more about what happens when people do donate to special collections.
You may be wondering, so what happens after it's agreed a donor will contribute materials to special collections? The first thing we do is ensure the donor and the university understand explicitly how special collections will handle the materials by completing a document called a deed of gift. Then we work with the donor to make arrangements for delivering the materials. Once the collection has arrived on campus, our staff begins the work of arranging and describing the materials. This can take from a few weeks up to years. It all depends on the size of the collection and its complexity. Our archivists typically rehouse all materials in acid-free boxes and folders to protect the items from dust and light, and then arrange the materials to best meet the needs of future researchers. We then create an online inventory, which lets researchers know what's in the collection. Donations of new materials are at the heart of the work that we do. It's all related to our goal to support the research, teaching, and learning mission of the University of Arkansas. I encourage you to visit our website to learn more about what collections we have and how your materials might complement our holdings. And when the time is right, let's talk. You can reach me by email or phone to get the process started. I look forward to hearing from you. And until then, happy collecting!
All right, so before we head back into the archive, I'm just going to pause here. If there are any questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask them live, or go ahead and put them in the chat, and Amy and I can take a look at the chat and we'll field those questions. All right, well, there'll certainly be time if anyone has questions later on in the afternoon. All right, so most of what you're going to be seeing this afternoon from the archive is all available through our digital collections on our website. I wanted to highlight things that you can view anytime, anywhere for free. These collections are really a fantastic entry point into learning about what kinds of collections are in the archive, some of which you've just heard described in those videos. Unfortunately, right now, we're only able to be open for University of Arkansas faculty, students, and staff. And so, like I said, I wanted you to be able to see things that you can then access after this presentation if you're interested. And so we're going to start by looking at the Holt papers. And so you can see a Valentine from 1945 on the screen in front of you. This is one of about 300 letters that Richard Holt wrote back to Fayetteville and his family during World War II while he was stationed in New York, as well as North Carolina, and then when he started serving abroad. And when he was abroad, he was mostly in North Africa and Italy. What's really special about this collection is that the impetus for digitizing it came from a former staff member in the library. These are letters that his parents exchanged during World War II, and he really wanted them to have a special home and a place where researchers could access them and use them as part of their research. And so several years ago, the collection became digitized, and all of it's also transcribed, and those transcriptions are available online. And so this is a Valentine that accompanied a 3-page letter that Richard wrote to his wife in February 1945. And I'll just go ahead and read the Valentine in case you're not able to make out the text there. Richard writes, "Valentine greetings with love to my sweetheart. Dan Cupid still is on the job, and he will never fail. He's working now for Uncle Sam and carrying the mail. He's bringing you this Valentine because we're far apart. To tell you that I love you, dear. I do with all my heart, Lee." And I love the sort of imagery that's on this Valentine. You can see sort of an Uncle Sam or Cupid in the bottom corner. You can see the American flags up at the top. And I think my favorite part of the design is the cameo that's in the other corner. And you can see what looks like maybe an image of a soldier and his sweetheart. And I just think that that's it really puts me back in the 1940s. And I love looking at this. So as part of the letter, Richard also talks about how he can't wait to come home. And this is the 3rd page of the letter. So this is the end of what he wrote. And you can see that this letter was folded many times. You can see the creases in the bottom half of the page. You can even see the ink from the other side coming through. And then I also love looking at the handwriting. It's just such beautiful cursive. And we don't tend to write long form letters like this anymore, or I don't. And I love just seeing and picturing him wherever he might have been at the time and just putting pen to paper and writing back to Fayetteville. And so I'll just read an excerpt from this letter. He writes, "Honey, you said it would be like heaven to have me home. Well, my sweet, it will sure be a heaven when I do get there. And believe me, it is going to take something to ever get me away again. Although this war ends, of course, I expect to come home and have to be gone again before getting home to stay. But it sure won't be like the past 20 months have been. In fact, it doesn't seem possible that I have been gone that long. But sweet, I am just longing for the day when I can hold you in my arms again and know that we won't have to go through what we will have gone through with anymore. We can spend the rest of our lives in peace. So as I have said so many times, sweet, chin up and everything is going to come out okay." I just think that's such a beautiful sentiment. I love that he capitalized the word peace, which you can see a little bit like in the bottom 3rd of the page. You can make out that that's where that message is coming from. And I just think that that's so heartfelt and so heartwarming. So now we're going to, I'm curious, I'm hoping you'll add to the chat. Think about a time that maybe you last wrote a love letter to your partner. And I'm curious kind of how you wrote that. what you used. And yes, Rachel, I completely agree. The letter really brings back that kind of loneliness that he must have been feeling. So take a minute and share how you might have most recently communicated with one of your loved ones. Great, Kelly's been writing cards to friends, and hi there, Amy. Yep, so sending postcards. Oh, I like that, sending postcards. I hadn't thought about that one. Great. So it sounds like folks are still doing handwritten notes, so that's exciting to hear. All right. I love to get mail too. My husband always tells me I have to write mail to get mail. All right, so our next collection is from the Gist collection. And this woman's nickname was Della, so that's how I'm going to refer to her. As you look at the letter that's on the screen here, this paper is almost tissue paper thin. So if we were in the archive together and we were looking at a folder of these letters, like I say, the paper is just incredibly thin. And you can really see that even in the scan. You can see the ink coming through on the other side and just how thin that paper really is. And so Della was working as a governess during the 1890s, and she was traveling all around with the family that she worked for, which was Major William F. Moore's family. And at the time that she wrote this letter, she was in St. Croix, which she refers to as the Dutch West Indies, but what we would refer now to as St. Croix. And she talks about a lot of different things in the letters. And you can really see that this is a journey of a young woman who's becoming an adult and who is kind of exploring the world in her own way through her position as a companion and as an instructor for the 5 children that the major had. But what I love at the end is how she finishes the letter, because she writes about something that's fairly mundane. And I wanted to share that particular bit with you. So this is 1892 from St. Croix, and she writes, "Now all of you write to me and tell me everything. Just now, some mosquitoes are bothering me, and I have several large bites on my wrist." What I love about that is it's one of those things that we don't necessarily assume we'll find in a letter back home she was writing to her dad and her stepmom. We might assume that she's talking about all the sights that she's seeing and the experiences she's having. And she does that too, of course. But what I love is that she's writing about something that's kind of bothersome to her that we might not think that much about. I tend to suffer pretty horribly from mosquito bites, so that line really stuck out to me. I can certainly sympathize with what she was experiencing over 130 years ago. And it's always great to find those sorts of connections when you're reading letters that were written so long ago. So I'm curious to hear a bit from you about a memorable letter maybe that you wrote your parents or guardians growing up. And I hope you'll, as you give that some thought, you'll share what the topic was in the chat. I also went to summer camp, and I remember having a great time, but since growing up, my parents have reminded me of the letters I wrote them where I was complaining and really miserable and wanting to come home. So hindsight is 2020, I guess. We all have a particular lens on things. Yeah. Great. So the next collection highlight I wanted to share with you is a little bit different. So this comes from our Ozark folk song collection, and it's called The Arkansas Student in 1951. And before I play the song for you, I just wanted to tell you a bit about this collection. This is one of the real treasures that we have in special collections. These are Ozark folk songs mostly recorded and compiled between 1949 and 1965. We believe it's the largest and most complete collection of traditional music and associated materials from Arkansas and Ozarks in the nation. And so, like I say, we're very honored and proud to have this as part of our holdings. The physical collection includes recordings of songs, oral histories, anecdotes, and tales from over 700 performers. In addition, there are transcriptions of lyrics as well as music notations. And the contents contain a wide variety of topics, from religion to family relationships to the economy, all kinds of different topics. And so I'm going to play for you a song called The Arkansas Student, and we'll talk a little bit about that after the song is over.
Now Mr. Hamilton is going to sing The Arkansas Student.
Going up to Fayetteville on the cannonball after 3 weeks shooting down the Arkansas. Whiskers very extensive, beard, mustache as well. See that Arkansas student, tall and stout and swell. Empty seat behind him, no one at his side. Into the country village now the train doth glide. Enter aged couple, take the rearmost seat, followed blushing maiden, so charming and so sweet. Softly she whispers, is the seat engaged? See the aged couple so properly enraged. Student very attentive, sees her ticket through, thinks he of the tunnel and just what he'd do. Gaily now they chattered, while the cinders fly, till the Arky student gets one in his eye. Maiden sympathetic turns herself about, says, may I, if you please, sir, try to get it out. Then the Arky student feels a gentle touch, hears a sweet voice whisper, does it hurt you much? Slip, slap, bang, into the tunnel quiet, right along in darkness, as dark as Egypt's night. Tra-la-la-la-la, isn't it lots of fun? Tra-la-la-la-la, you know how it's done. Tra-la-la-la-la, isn't it lots of fun? Tra-la-la-la-la, you know how it's done. Out into the daylight, glide cannonball, students be ruffled, just the slightest call. Maiden seen all blushes when the student appeared, with a dainty little earring in the Arky student's beard. Tra-la-la-la-la, you know how it was done. Tra-la-la-la-la, wasn't it lots of fun? Tra-la-la-la-la, wasn't it lots of fun? Tra-la-la-la-la, you know how it was done.
All right, so I'm curious if any of you brave souls out there have ever written a love song or maybe a poem, and how that love song or poem was received. So you're welcome to add those thoughts in the chat. So Kelly has added a comment that she loves the sound effects that are in the song we just heard, and I would agree. And Rachel was asking what the cannonball was, and it sounds like maybe the train was the cannonball. So there's a lot of kind of imagery and symbolism in that song. And like I say, that's just really the tip of the iceberg. There are many, many others, all of which you can hear online, and all of the songs have been transcribed. So you can also see the lyrics written out if you'd ever like to go back and take a closer look. All right, so it sounds like we don't necessarily have any songwriters or poets with us today, but that's fine. Oh, Kelly says that she wrote a poem and it was published in the paper as a teenager. That's fantastic, Kelly. Thanks so much for sharing. That's great. All right, so the last item I want to share with you is actually not something you can see as part of our digital collections. This item is part of our rare book holdings, and I wanted to give you a sense of that part of our collection as well. We're very fortunate to have thousands of rare book volumes as part of our collection. And so what you're seeing on the screen is the volume Just Whistle, a Valentine. And this is a book of poetry integrated with photographs by Deborah Luster, and it was published in 1992. And this was the first collaboration between C.D. Wright and Deborah Luster. They would go on in 1998 to create their most infamous work, which was One Big Self, Prisoners of Louisiana. and that is a volume of poetry and photographs that documents the lives of incarcerated persons in Louisiana. So as some of you probably know, C.D. Wright lived here in Northwest Arkansas in Fayetteville. She's a much acclaimed poet and author. We are honored and privileged to have her works as part of our holdings and special collections. She's a real local treasure, and we're just so fortunate. Deborah Lester was also an artist, or is also an artist in Northwest Arkansas, I should say. And she and Wright had several different collaborations over the course of their careers. And it's a very interesting volume because it integrates photography alongside the poetry. And that's something that I at least hadn't necessarily seen before. So now we're going to talk as a group about a little bit about what we've heard and seen so far. So I'm curious, what I'll do in a minute is just stop sharing my screen so we can look at each other and have a bit of a conversation. But I'm curious to hear, based on the examples we've seen so far. So we've seen a Valentine and a letter written during World War II. We've seen a letter from a young woman written back home to her dad and stepmom in 1892. We've heard an Ozark folk song. And finally, we've seen a book of poetry and photographs. And I'm curious what your thoughts are about how our different figures have communicated their messages. How have they shared their messages of care, and what thoughts you have about what it's helpful to include when you're writing that kind of message based on your own experience or what we've seen today, and just any other kind of thoughts you have. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so I can see you. And Amy, I wonder if we can maybe pause the recording. Is that okay? Pause it and we'll. All right, so we've come to the end of our time together today, and I want to thank you all for being here. We're always happy in Special Collections to talk to you about your own family's history, to talk to you about the kind of work that we do. We are frequently working on exhibits as well as digital collections, and working with researchers from all over the world who are using our collections. And like I say, we're always happy to talk with you more. This year is a very special year for us in Special Collections. We're helping to celebrate the university's 150th anniversary. We're looking forward to celebrating the 75th anniversary of the School of Architecture and Design. And we're also looking forward to the 75th anniversary of the Fulbright program. And so it's going to be a busy and exciting 2021 for Special Collections and university libraries. And I look forward to continuing to engage with you throughout the year.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Fantastic.